Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Get Engaged Wednesday. Just so that everybody knows, there was really cool music playing in the background and everything. Then I realized I don't think I shared my sound. So, welcome, and Happy New Year. And most importantly, welcome to the coolest part of the PTA year. And that's the time in which we are preparing ourselves to elect our nominating committees. My name is Alvin Gainey, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Vice President for Regions and Councils for Florida PTA. And joining me tonight are really a cast of characters, some of which we will recognize in a few minutes. But we want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your evening to be with us today. It truly does mean a lot for you to take time out in the middle of the week to spend a few minutes with us. So we want to be respectful of everyone's time, and we're going to jump right in. So on the top side of our presentation, we want to remind everyone to save the date for our upcoming Florida PTA Leadership Convention, which is going to be held in the beautiful city of Orlando, Florida this year for the first time in 34 years, Jennifer, at the Omni Orlando Champions Gate. So we look forward to each of you joining us July 21st through the 24th in Orlando. If you need any additional information, registration is going to be opening soon. But of course, you can always hop on over to Florida PTA's website and find out anything that you need to know about Leadership Convention. So just to go over a couple of ground rules, if you're not speaking, we ask very kindly that you mute your microphone. We'd love to see your smiling faces, so feel free to share your camera with us. And of course, we'd like to ask that you try to maintain and keep any of your questions until the end of the presentation. I promise we're going to leave adequate time for us to be able to address any questions you may have. At this time, I'd like to welcome Jennifer Martinez, Florida PTA President, to bring us greetings.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Alvin. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on our weekly Get Engaged Wednesdays. Tonight is sure to be a hot topic, and Alvin said it right, a cast of characters. Thank you for taking time out of your evening and away from your family to learn ways to properly and some not so properly ways to engage in the nominating committee process. We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate all that you do every day. And the nominating committee is a pivotal point because it will set your unit up for long-term success. So let's dig in, Alvin.
Thank you again, Madam President. I'd also like to thank any of the executive committee members from Florida PTA that were able to join us. Thank you, and thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we are hosted this evening by our Regions and Councils Commission. So on behalf of your county council presidents and region representatives, thank you and welcome to Get Engaged Wednesday. So before we jump headfirst into tonight's workshop, let's get an idea of who has joined us. So at this time, we are going to go ahead and launch a poll because we want to get an idea of who has joined us tonight. You take a minute, complete your poll, and I'm going to get my doorbell.
I see there's a couple of you that have joined from your phone. Sometimes on your phone, in order to see the poll, you'll have to downsize your screen and then the poll will pop up if that helps for our members that have joined us from their cell phone. We're almost at everyone. We'll give it a few more seconds. Shelly and I hope that that doorbell for Alvin was not his DoorDash. And Bert, Felita, and I, and Melanie did not hear our doorbells ring.
Well, the director always gets his first.
Oh, okay. Is that how it works?
So let's go ahead and check it out and see who we've got with us this evening. Let's see here. Let's share those results. So we see that there are 21 of you that are presidents. 8 of you are vice presidents. We've got 6 secretaries, some treasurers, 7 board members, and we are happy to have you all. So you're the right people in the right place. So let's go ahead and jump right into tonight's presentation. And that was not Amazon at my door. So how many of you are feeling like this when you think of the nominating committee? Well, hopefully, after our time together this evening, you'll leave here a little bit better and you won't want to pull your hair out. So today's objectives are rather simple. We want to find out, and we will share what governs the nominating committee's election. When and how are the nominating committee members elected? What should the nominating committee actually do? And when the nominating committee should report. So a dear friend of mine and a member of the National PTA's Nominating and Leadership Recruitment Committee, which is just really fancy for nominating committee, her name's Dee Hensley McLean. And I remember a conversation, she was quoted to say, "Our charge isn't to simply fill vacancies, but to identify the next generation of leaders that will advance our association." The work of the nominating committee is vitally important to the future of your local unit PTA, the county council, the state, and national PTA. Without knowledgeable, willing volunteers, the effectiveness of our association may not be as strong in the future as it has been in the past. When you consider the undertaking of the nominating committee, I believe 2 things should be considered and guide the work of the committee: skill and will. These 2 characteristics are indispensable and virtually 2 sides of the same coin. More importantly, as long as someone brings will to the table, skill can develop along the journey. Although optimally, volunteer leaders that are skilled and willful typically best serve the efforts of the PTA. Now, here we stand at the crossroads of the work of the nominating committee. If you've not experienced an effective nominating committee and a well-run election, it's easy to feel lost in this process. So the question at this point is where do we start? You always want to start with your governing documents. Start by referencing your bylaws. The bylaws speak to when the committee is elected, and the nominating committee should be elected during a general meeting at least 30 days prior to the election meeting. The body at the time of election will decide if 3 or 5 members will be elected. And going forward, a majority of the committee will constitute a quorum for the committee's work. The president at the time of election will appoint a chair pro tem, who will be responsible for calling the first meeting of the committee and simply facilitating the election of a permanent chair. It's important that we take some time to note that the work of the committee is to be held in strict confidence. Information about the work of the committee should not be shared with anyone other than members of the committee, and care must be taken to ensure that members are not discussing the business of the committee outside of official committee meetings. The committee must be able to complete its work without any outside influence. So the nominating committee has one job, yes, only one job, to nominate one person for each office to be filled. In order to accomplish this, the committee should release a call for nominations, similar to the call for nominations that Florida PTA has released. This can be done with either a paper form or an electronic form such as a Google form. The call for nominations should include the duties of all offices to be filled as provided in the bylaws. Basic information regarding the applicant's self-identified demographics, work or volunteer experience, and position sought should be collected. The committee should also develop a set of rules or a rubric that will govern how they will interview, evaluate, and ultimately select the candidates to be slated. So, in just a few moments, we're going to join the first nominating committee of the Rolling Green Elementary School PTA's nominating committee. Melanie, Jennifer, Bert, Felita, and Shelley were recently elected to the nominating committee. Melanie was appointed chair pro tem and has finally called the first meeting of the committee with only days to spare before the election meeting. In just a moment, we'll join them.
Well, am I good to get started?
Just a moment.
Okay.
Eager beaver. And where is Melanie?
It's OCC, if that helps you find her, Alvin.
Oh, I did change my name. So.
Is her camera on?
Yes.
Okay. Where is she? It's weird. Okay, give me 1 second, folks. Treat. And action.
Well, I think I've done a good job, so there is no need to elect a chair. I will just be the chair. Moving on.
Oh, wait, I think I would be great as chair. And I want to be president next year, county council president in 2 years. And someday I will be the president of Florida PTA. I can see it now.
Hold your horses,
It's Jennifer, Jenni.
Yeah. Whatever, Jane, Judy, Jessica, Jennifer, no one cares. All I know is you're one of those minivan moms, and I don't want you as chair, and nobody wants you as our president either.
Ugh, who asked him? And why is he even here?
You did. Unmute. Felita.
Excuse me, we need to concentrate on the work of the nominating committee, not all of this other stuff.
Jen, I don't know who sold either of them a membership, but I certainly didn't ask for their opinion. No matter what, the minivan moms are going to stick together. We will slate our friends to be officers next year and take over PTA. We already know who we want. That's why I wasn't in a rush to call this meeting.
I hear you. I think we should also be meeting in person. I'm vaccinated.
No one wants to be in the room with you, regardless of your vaccination status, or if we are able to socially distance. Being in any room with you is way too close.
What is his problem, Jen? I don't care about meeting in person, even though I didn't take the vaccination. I use essential oils, mineral salts, and organic herbs to cure myself all 3 times that I've had COVID.
Did you guys notice my new yoga top? I got it at Lululemon.
Excuse me, we really need to be talking about the future leaders of our PTA. I don't have time for this, and I didn't even join this meeting for whatever this is.
And cut. So thank God for Felita in this mix, because she seemed to be maybe, just maybe, one of the only people to have attended a training by Florida PTA. So we're going to rejoin that crazy cast here in just a few minutes. But until then, we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump back into our presentation. as soon as I can find my controls. All righty. All righty. A few things to consider. When deciding on the candidate that will be slated, prudent committees will consider the applicant's skill set and experience, any self-identified demographics used to ensure that the PTA is representative of the community it serves. And of course, we want to know, does the applicant have the personal capacity to fully operate within whatever role for which he or she may be nominated? A few do's and don'ts. Rather, considering that very bad example of how the nominating committee should operate, let's consider a few do's. You want to make certain that you study any of the qualifications before recommending a nominee. Make certain that that person is a fit for that role. Don't pick someone simply because he or she may be your friend. Remember, as I mentioned before, the confidentiality of the committee. Any discussions that are had in the room stays in the room. You should never repeat what is said in the confines of a meeting outside of that meeting. Now, if you happen to be a candidate for one of the positions, you should always leave the room during the conversation, deliberation, and vote with regards to that position. And if you are, you should never persuade any of the members of the nominating committee to vote for you. You want to ensure that when it's time to report, that the report is done properly through any prescribed channels, be it a newsletter or simply at a general meeting. You should never, as a member of the committee, ever report the results of the committee unofficially. You should always wait until that report is made publicly to talk about the slate of officers. Well, in just a few minutes, just a few moments, we're going to rejoin the nominating committee. We're going to rejoin Melanie, who now has gone to a training with Florida PTA, and her nominating committee as they work through the first call meeting of the Rolling Green Elementary PTA nominating committee.
First, thank you both for agreeing to meet so quickly. We know we were just elected a few days ago, but it was important that we meet to begin our work together. The first order of our business together is to elect a chair. Are there any nominations?
Well, I think you have done a good job bringing us together, and I don't have much experience, so I would nominate you as chair.
Thank you, Jen. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no further nominations, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed, say no. Okay, you have elected me as your chair. I understand that each of you will have something to offer in this process, and it is important that we all participate. The most important thing to consider is the confidential nature of this committee. Our work must remain just between us.
Melanie, as we move forward, I think we should make every attempt to seek diverse volunteers that will best represent our community and help move our PTA forward.
Great point, Jen. Aside from diversity, we will also look for those that may possess a skill set and those that are willing to learn something new.
Melanie, I have some history in human resources. I've done a lot of recruiting and interviews over the years. I may have some sample questions we could ask the candidates during the interview.
You're muted, Bert, unmute.
That sounds good. And maybe we should try to interview at least 2 volunteers for each position. Melanie, what's next?
See, I knew you all have some really good ideas. Let's develop a timeline so that we can stay on track. We will need to release the call for nominations no later than March 3rd and anticipate having all letters of interest returned by March 18th, right? And then we'll meet to interview each applicant and decide who we would like to slate. The election meeting is scheduled for April 20th. And I hope you all will be there when we announce the slate to the members. It's good.
So that was a much, much better representation of what the nominating committee should be doing and how they should be conducting themselves. Thank you, Melanie and Cast.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about the reporting process. When, in what manner, by whom, and to whom are the things that you should consider. The report of the nominating committee should be taken at the election meeting when called upon by the chair. A verbal report to the membership or either a written report to the secretary is usually feasible. The chair of the nominating committee, unless he or she has appointed someone else, will typically report on behalf of the committee. And of course, this report is made to the general membership. In the next scene, the PTA president is sick and unable to attend tonight's meeting. Jennifer, who is the first vice president, is presiding at the election meeting and is ready for the nominating committee to present the slate to the membership. In just a moment, we'll join them.
The next
And-
order of
Go for it, Jennifer.
The next order of business will be the election of officers. Before we proceed, Melanie, the nominating committee chair, will present the slate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The nominating committee nominates Jennifer Martinez for president, Susan Gross for first vice president, Lynn Roberts for treasurer, Judith Gray for recording secretary, and James Bryant for corresponding secretary for the 2021-2022 school year.
Thank you, Melanie. Are there any other nominations for the office of president?
Well, before you ask that question, Madam President, we're going to go ahead and cut you there because I do believe that Bert might be tempted to nominate himself. So first, before we open up for any questions, I want to thank the members, the cast members of tonight's presentation. And of course, that is Jennifer Martinez, our president, Melanie Williams, who is the president of Orange County Council, Felita Tutt, who is our Northeast Region representative, Shelly Pedraza, who is the Seminole County Council president, and of course, Bert Miller, the star of the show, who is, oh look, and he's even got his own award. He is the president, of course, of Broward County Council. So thank you very much. So at this time, I promise to leave ample time to be able to address any of the questions or concerns to come from the floor. So is there anyone that may have any questions or need some guidance as it relates to their nominating committee? Now, I want to say this, don't be shy. Feel free to raise your virtual hand. And there's enough knowledge on this call to be able to address any of the questions you may have.
So Alvin, while you were presenting, the first two, the first one is Derby Johnson, and the next one is Jacqueline Roman. They put them in the chat, but they came to me. So if you want to call on them first.
Very well. What was the first name, Jennifer?
Derby Johnson.
Okay. Would you like to come off mute and ask your question?
Yes. the question that I had was relating to, I think it was the first slide when you advised that there are 3 to 5 members of the nominating committee that are elected. You'd said something about a quorum and I didn't catch it. And I just wanted to make sure that I did not miss anything.
Okay, so good question. Again, 3 to 5 members is stipulated in your bylaws. So the general membership will elect at the time of the election, will they elect 3 members or 5 members? Then going forward, a majority of that group, either 2 or 3, in the case of 3 or 5, will constitute a quorum in order for the committee to conduct its business.
Got it.
So
Okay.
if you elect, right, so if you elect 3 members, 2 members is what you will need in order to conduct business. If you elect 5, you'll need at least 3 in order to conduct any business.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And what county are you from, Derby?
Volusia County, Pathways
Okay.
Elementary. Yeah,
Very nice to have you this evening.
thank
And what was
you.
the next name, Jennifer?
Jacqueline Roman.
Jacqueline Roman, would you like to come off mute and ask your question?
Yes, hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Jacqueline Roman. I'm from Sunland Park Academy in Broward County. And
All
we
righty.
actually just had our elections on January 14th, post-pandemic for the first time in 2 years. So I actually just wanted to thank Bert Miller for his support and his help to get us through. We're actually having our first PTA meeting tomorrow evening. So just a shout out and thank you guys for all your support and all your help guiding us through this process.
Well, thank you, Jacqueline, and congratulations on getting your PTA up and running. I'm not sure how much the check was that Bert wrote to you, but I'm glad that you gave him a shout out. What part of New York are you from?
I'm from Poughkeepsie, New York, not too far from
Okay.
Albany.
Okay. All righty.
Yeah.
And I do see that Chris has his hand raised. Chris, why don't you go ahead and unmute and ask your question?
Sure. So you had mentioned that the chair had been trained by Florida PTA in elections. Is when the chair is elected or was appointed, pardon me, do we need to put them in touch with Florida PTA for training? Do we need to meet with them and give them a charge and go over this sort of information? What's the best procedure for that?
So great question. First and foremost, most of you have a county council that is able to assist you. So if you are in an area where you have a county council, the county council should be your first point of contact. So if and when you elect a chair that may not be versed in this process, you can always reach out to your county council. Now, here's the thing. We go out on a limb every time we say this, but anytime you can always reach out to Florida PTA. Now, normally the first course of action will be to touch bases with the county council president to ensure that they've got the capacity to support. If they don't, we are more than happy to help any of our local unit leaders across the state in understanding this process, because it's extremely important. Because I can tell you, when you get the nominating process done right, it really sets the pace for that incoming term for those newly elected officers. So, but we're always there to support. And of course, I will share my contact information here in just a few minutes. And you can always get the contact information for your county council from Florida PTA's website at floridapta.org.
And if we're comfortable in the process, can we meet with the committee before they elect their chair to give them a charge and go through it just to make sure that they're aware, or do we need to be completely hands off?
And when you say we, could you give me an idea?
I'm sorry. So when the president nominate or has pardon me, let me back up. The committee has been elected. The president has appointed a pro temp chair. Yep. Before they elect their chair, is it permissible for the president to meet with them, give them their charge, exit themselves from the meeting, and then let themselves begin their official business? Or would that be considered a conflict of interest?
Great question. And I'm assuming that Bert gave you a question bank of all the great questions to ask?
He
No, I'm
did
just
not, but I'll give him credit for it anyway, because I'm gonna need to call on favors from at some point.
So here's the thing. That's a great question, because the nominating committee is the one committee that the president is completely hands off with. Okay. So what I will say is after a president has appointed a chair pro tem, it is completely permissible for you to ask a chair pro tem, do you know what you need to do next? i.e., scheduling a meeting and helping to elect a chair. If not, let me put you in contact with the county council.
Awesome.
And that is the best way to do it, to remain as hands-off as possible.
Great.
I understand the need sometimes for kind of sharing a vision for the coming year and all of that good stuff. But in order to really maintain that level of confidence in the committee, the president should not involve him or herself.
Awesome. Thank you.
No, thank you. So Jen, do you have another one in the chat before I take a raised hand?
I do. Thank you so much. So this is a long one, but they don't have
Okay.
a microphone, so I'm going to read it to you.
Okay.
Question. Going back to the very beginning of the presentation, you mentioned the nominating committee are elected. Who elects them? General PTSA or board members? If it's the general meeting members who nominate the members of the nominating committee, how are we to ensure that those that are selected know what to look for in each position if they don't even have any experience to begin with?
Okay. So let's, oh, I'm sorry.
The next is just an example. So answer that first one.
Okay, so let's take the top piece of the question. It is the general membership that elects the members of the nominating committee. Now, it's important that when you begin to dispose of this piece of business, that the work of the committee is explained. Now, you're not going to be able to go through all of the nuts and bolts of what the nominating committee will do, but you can give a general idea of the scope of the work. Typically, there's going to be someone like a Karen Mazzola, for instance, in the audience that says, oh, I've got some history with recruiting. I'd like to nominate myself. Usually you will find someone with a skill set that will say, oh, this clicks with something. And I will tell you, one of the easiest ways to get folks to do this is to let them know that your scope of work is extremely short. This is not a year-long committee. You are literally elected for usually about a good month or so at the local unit level in order to conduct this work. And there is no guarantee that you're ever going to elect members that know this. That's why when you run into those whatever those roadblocks may be, you have a direction to point them in. And that is either the county council or Florida PTA. Okay. Was that it, Jennifer?
So the next part is, I would think someone who has experience already should be the best qualified to be on the nominating committee. How are they going to know what to look for in the candidates?
Good question, or great observation. I will tell you, I'll use myself as an example. I am personally nominating committee out. In fact, I think Jennifer and I was on a nominating committee together a few years ago. And of course, we believe that we did it right? We did it best. I've done this same work at the national level for national PTA and in other states as well. So I personally feel like I never have to serve on another nominating committee. The only time that it should be of some concern with regards to a member serving is if they've served, and there may be no rule against it in your local standing rules if you have them. But there are some organizations that will not allow someone to serve 2 consecutive years on the nominating committee. So sometimes you may have someone, in fact, I remember last year in this process, there was a gentleman that was his role in the PTA. He was always a member of the nominating committee. And it was cool, as long as there was nothing that prohibited. So that's something to consider. And if you do find someone who's good at it and is willing to be a part of this process on an annual basis, you found yourself a diamond in the rough. Okay. Lillian, would you like to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question? Lillian
Hey,
Araga?
yes, hi.
There we-
Good evening, everybody. This is Lily Arago. I am the president for GW Carver Middle School in Coral Gables. Good evening, everybody. And thank you. Actually, the question was already answered as far as who elects the nominating committee during a general membership. My second question was, is there a description for those roles as a nominating committee? I actually volunteered to be part of the, or nominate myself, should I say, as part of the nominating committee for here in Miami-Dade County. So I'm looking forward to that and taking that experience and sharing that with my PTSA. But is there a description for the role?
Okay, so first question is this, Lillian. Are you a member of Miami-Dade County Council's nominating committee?
I believe so.
If
I will
you
double
are, you
check
should
with
be on-
Sandra. I
if
will
you
double check
are,
with
you
Sandra.
should- If you are, you should be on a meeting of the nominating committee tonight. They are meeting now.
Oh
So
my God. Okay, so maybe not.
in the Florida PTA kit of materials, there is some information on the nominating committee.
Okay.
And outside of that, if there's something in particular that anyone needs, of course, we're always a resource and we'll be able to get you whatever it is that you may need.
Okay,
And
thank
by
you.
the way, good job on that day of service that you guys just completed.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very
And
much.
thank you. I had a question in the chat, and it was actually a really good question. And the question is this, is can there be more than one person to occupy the position of president? Can two people share the position of president? Florida PTA, nor do your local unit bylaws allow for co-presidents or any other co-officer positions. One person serves in each role. The parliamentary authority also speaks to this and says that there's no such thing as a co-president or co-treasurer or anything of that nature. So I hope that answers that question. And of course, I will be more than happy to share this PowerPoint in the chat here in just a few minutes. Arian Collins, would you like to go ahead and share your question?
Hi, my name's Ariane. I'm from Miami, Florida. We're at Ludnam Elementary. And
Okay.
my question is, we are just now starting up again as well after COVID. But we also had an administration change, which has also caused a lot of, I don't want to say complications for getting membership, but the principal that was at our school prior kind of pushed away a lot of parent help, I guess you can say. So we have a new principal, so we're working with that. We only have 3 board members. And my concern is we're supposed to have another election in April. And we have maybe 2 other parents that are willing to work. One of them was on the previous board and her husband's like, absolutely not. I need suggestions and ideas. My vice president's here tonight. She's like, you need to get on this call because I think there's things that you guys can help us with, but
So
I don't know, suggestions, ideas. I mean, I saw that you said like a call for nominations. Is that something like, do you think like sending that out to our members? Like we're doing completely member drive. Like we had 33 members the other day and we're a very small school. And
I know
so with
Ludlam.
yeah. And then so like to send out like an email and then see if people are interested, but I can't
Yes,
even get people to help with like a fundraiser right now.
So that's a very unique position. A very good question too, because here's the thing. There may be members who are willing to serve your PTA as an elected officer that is totally not interested in any of your events. They're not interested in any fundraising or nope, but they are willing to put in whatever time it may take to help to do those things. Okay. So your call for nomination should always go to as many people as possible. When I say that, I literally mean as many people as possible. So instead of only sending it to, at the time, those 33 members that you have, you want to get the president to go ahead and do one of those robocalls or send that email that's going to go to all of the parents of the school. And then here's the thing, you are the greatest mouthpiece for your PTA. You will encounter someone that is outside of the four walls of the school that is totally interested and sold on what you do in PTA. I do remember when I was a local unit leader in Miami-Dade County, I had members that were not necessarily associated with the school. Okay, so we had members of our board that were members of the church across the street, or there was specifically my daughter's Girl Scout troop leader was one of our board members. She didn't have a child at the school, but she was interested in the work of PTA. And she got involved because I was actually, to be totally transparent, I was complaining one evening about the PTA and we need people and blah, blah, blah. And she says, well, you volunteer for Girl Scouts, I can volunteer for PTA. And I'm like, okay, and didn't even know that I was asking this woman, honestly. So a lot of times you can be the best mouthpiece for PTA by sharing this with people far and wide. When that call for nominations goes out, you as an individual, share it on your Facebook, on your social media feeds. There are people that are outside of the normal sphere of the school that are willing to help you. You are in a rebuilding phase at Ludlam. And there's been some years as it relates to Ludlam's activity. So I know very, very well where you are.
It's sad. I mean, we saw we found a piece of paper. We had 13 members on the board at one point, and then over the years it just kind of diminished, and it's heartbreaking. I will say the woman that we have now, the principal that we have now, she's amazing. And she's a magician or something. So I'm wondering if she can reach out to the community, because she's gotten so many donations to the school already to fix.
See, and that's another thing. That's what I was going to say. When you, and for those of you that are not in Miami-Dade County, and this is not to make this a Miami-Dade conversation, our outside partners are called Dade partners. So your principal could always share this information with Dade partners, because some of those organizations allow those employees to be as involved as they'd like to be with those schools. So you may find someone that's willing to help you for a year as a vice president of some specific area because it's something they're interested in. And again, Ludlam used to have a really robust PTA. Who's your principal now?
Ms. Carrasco Perez. I think she's a new principal. She came from Coral Reef and Southwood.
Oh, wait, stop right there then. So she is, I know exactly who you're talking about. She is PTA.
Yes.
Okay. She is.
It's a little overwhelming. I won't lie. Yes. It's a little overwhelming. This woman is.
Okay. So take this into consideration.
Okay.
She has a wonderful energy about her. Allow her to be your magnet. She knows PTA, and that's good that you have an administrator that really understands the work of PTA. So you may have 3 board members, but just know that you're in good shape.
Okay.
You've got a good principal. That's okay for your baby crying. You've got a good principal, and you've got a great county council there to support you. Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
Can I just share
Cornelia.
something?
I'm sorry.
Can I just share something real quick with this?
Of
Because
course.
what the kid said. I took a screenshot of this the other day because our channel local news here, Channel 10, it's National Mentoring Month, highlights the need of volunteers in Florida. And it said recent studies show that Florida ranks lowest in the nation in volunteerism, and Southeast Florida even lower than the state average. So, you know, it's not just it's a national thing with the volunteers, you know, so we thank all of you guys that are on here tonight, because volunteers are hard to come by.
And what I can tell you is, you know, coming out of Miami-Dade County is my home. And I know some of the phenomenal volunteers in Miami-Dade County. Sometimes I have to beg to question, like, who do they ask this stuff to? Because I know we've got some rock stars in South Florida that's volunteering. So let me address one that I did receive in the chat here, and then we will go over to Cornelia. As an outgoing president, do we check on the nominating committee to ensure they're meeting so they're ready with the slate? Unlike the first example, or do we just leave it alone completely? It is completely okay. I call it a pulse check with any of your committees and committee leaders. It's okay to just simply find out, have you guys met? Is there something that you may need from a resource standpoint? Or can we point you in the direction to be able to get questions answered for you? As long as someone doesn't say, so who is it that you're considering for president? No, but it is okay for you to check in and say, or you can say, once you elect a chair, let me know who the chair will be so that I'll know who the point of contact is for the nominating committee. That's a good way of being able to just kind of know when they're gonna, move on with that business. Can you reward your nominating committee with something small? I'll be honest with you, because I am a big person on the perception of things. I would say I would advise against that. Aside from that, now someone personally can do whatever they want. I would not publicly do that, and I would refrain from doing it privately, because there could be a perception kind of gleaned from that, oh, they're being rewarded because they chose the people that Bert wanted, for instance. So I would refrain from it. What I would do, though, is at the end of the year, I would make it a point to kind of highlight all of our board members, or all of those that may have volunteered in a key role that year. And that way you are, you're kind of highlighting everyone and their work, instead of, kind of picking and choosing. All righty, Cornelia, would you like to go ahead and unmute and ask your question?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thanks again for having this. Cornelia from Horizon Elementary. I'm the secretary there. My question is it necessary to have a nominating committee? Like, is it written in the bylaws, or is it a recommendation? And the second question is, sorry, children going to bed.
It's okay. I'm in that same time frame at home.
And with regards to the nominating committee, what if you, because I've been on the board several years, so what if you regularly only have one person per office, one person running per office?
Okay, so great questions. I do believe it is Article 6 of the local unit bylaws where there is the requisite of the nominating committee. So it is a part of the governing documents, the bylaws specifically, where it is outlined that a nominating committee must be elected. I'm not sure if it speaks to the exact month, but it should be, the committee should be elected at least 30 days prior to the election meeting. That I do know. So yes, it is a requisite. Even though you may always or typically have one candidate per office, you should always elect a nominating committee when possible, because you want that process to be carried out in a very transparent manner. And more importantly, you do not want someone like Alvin to ever walk into a general meeting and say, hey, when was the election of the nominating committee? And someone say, oh, well, we didn't elect one. And I'm going to say, oh, no, that's bad mojo. Doesn't work that way. So you never want anyone to be able to question your processes. So that's why I always say, whatever that rule is, follow it to the letter. Okay. And in this case, it is a nominating committee must be elected, elect a nominating committee. And also, even though you are typically having one or two people interested, that's okay. You can say that your applicants were vetted in some process. Doesn't guarantee anything, but you can say there was a process for nominating individuals. Okay. Did that answer both of your questions? If not, remind me of the second part of your question.
Yes, It did actually, and thank you very much.
Of course.
Yes, it did. We do typically have one, and while we don't email out, as far as I know, word of mouth spread like wildfire, because that's how
Yeah.
I got involved. The nominating committee pulled me.
Now, the cool thing, Cornelia, if you've not used an email or however it is that you typically release the information, you can go back to your PTA now and use the world famous words. It has come to my attention that, okay, and you're not saying that we've done it wrong. It has come to my attention that we should release a call for nominations each year, or we should release a call for nominations outside of just our PTA. So you get to kind of take some of this information, and if anyone ever says, "Where'd you get that?" you can say, "Alvin Gainey told me that." And then, of course, if they ever contact me, I'm going to say, "Nope, go talk to Jen Martinez." But Florida PTA has your back in that process. Ashley Adams, I see your hand. Let's take your question.
I just had a question. We have an administrator who say if she wanted to serve on the nominating committee because she's also a member, are school administrators able to do that?
So there isn't anything, and that's a great question. We get that question at least once a year, Jen. There's nothing that prohibits it. Okay. I will say again, Alvin kind of, and sometimes I'm a little hung up on the optics of things, right? But what I would say is, I appreciate your willingness to help us fill this role. We'd love to see if we can make sure that we have representation from our stakeholders. Because you can't guarantee that anyone is going to come into this process without some ulterior motive. But if you can involve a parent or another stakeholder, I would definitely suggest that you try to. But there isn't anything that precludes an administrator from being a part of the committee. The only requisite is that you must be a member of the PTA in order to serve. Tracy, I see your hand. I'd like to take your question.
Hi, yes, thank you so much. My name is Tracy Morganelli. I am a current VP on the board at Pompano Beach High School. I've been doing this for quite some time, since my daughter was in kindergarten, but I'm always a little bit unclear. I feel as though the boards I've been involved in have never truly given me the exact correct process for this. So I want to make sure moving forward, I only have a few years left, that we do this properly going forward. So my question to you is, can a board member be a member of the nominating committee? Can I be a member of the nominating committee?
Yes, the only person that is precluded from participation in this committee or on this committee is the president. Any other board member can be elected. Any other board member, as long as they are a member of the PTA, can be elected.
Okay, and even if I plan to run,
that is correct.
Okay.
It is completely allowed. And as we mentioned earlier, what you should do is, for instance, if you're interested in running for president, when the committee is, you hear that, Bert, she's going to be president. When the committee is ready to discuss the office of president, you should excuse yourself from the room.
Okay.
So that the committee can talk about you, because that's what they're going to be doing.
Okay.
And any other applicants, and come to a decision as to who they will slate. Once they've come to that decision, they'll ask you back into the room, for an example, and say, you can come back in, and we're now going to talk about the vice presidents and whatever the other offices are. And then, of course, you will know who they slate based on whatever process the committee has come up with regards to letting people know that they've been slated. Okay.
Okay. Got it.
So,
thank you.
No, thank you. And coming from the chat, just to clarify, do we need to read the slate for all board positions or just the open positions? At the time of your annual election, all positions are open. Okay. So if someone who currently serves in a role is eligible to and desires to run again for that role, they need to run for that position again. All positions at the time of your annual election are open. Okay. And I am trying to keep track of the chat. So I may veer. And if I overlook something in the few minutes that we have left, it's okay for you to point that out for me. So let me address Karen Mazzola's chat. Can you talk about, other than soliciting a letter of intent, what do you do to recruit persons for nominations? I'll tell you where it starts. It starts at the time and place that you introduce yourself and ask someone to become a member. And I say that because that's the time that you have a captive audience with someone. We call it an elevator speech in PTA, right? You should have an elevator speech for everything. One for membership, one for getting involved for the fall festival. You've got to be Johnny on the spot. And in a very short interaction, you need to be able to tell every person that you make contact with, as much about your PTA as possible, which includes, what are we doing and what are we looking at in the future? In a few short months, we're going to be looking for volunteers to step into some leadership roles. You may not be interested in being an elected officer this year, but I think you'd make a great candidate for the board of directors. And next year, you can definitely be, a vice president or something. So it really starts at that very moment when you make that introduction on behalf of PTA. It doesn't stop when someone joins. When they join, some of them are paying you to leave them alone. The other ones, they want to hear from you. So they need to on a regular basis. Very easy through some sort of newsletter or social media communication to keep people involved in what's going on in the PTA. Because one of the things that you always hear people say, well, I didn't know you were even doing anything. I know that doesn't happen in Broward or Seminole, but in other places, that's what they'll say. I didn't know. Hey, well, you know what? Check us out on social media. You're able to keep up with us. And, it keeps people involved. Melanie Williams, I see your hand, ma'am.
Thank you, Alvin. On your presentation, you mentioned about reporting, the nominating committee reporting the slate. And the first instance that they do that is at the general meeting. And if you don't have standing rules, that's fine. Some local units will publish the slate 7 days or 3 days in advance, or with the meeting announcement. That is okay, right?
So it needs to be done at the general meeting, regardless of any other practice that you have. In Georgia, for instance, I serve in Georgia. It is part of the bylaws that it needs to be posted in the school, on the school's bulletin board 10 days prior to the election meeting. And of course, the last 2 years, we're like, nobody can even get to that bulletin board. Where am I going to post it? But unless you have a set of standing rules that stipulate something like that, usually it's done at the general meeting. Now, if you have a regular communication, such as a newsletter of some sort, as long as it does not circumvent any other normal adopted process, there's nothing wrong with sharing that information. Because case in point, Shelley Pedraza is a magnet, right? She's got this cool energy, so people love her. Well, if people know that she's going to be the next president, that may be good for membership for the next year. I like Shelley, so I'm going to join. Like, she likes Krispy Kreme donuts, so do I. So I'm going to join just because I like Shelley. So sharing it is not necessarily a bad thing, Melanie. You just want to make sure it doesn't circumvent any, adopted processes.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Karen Mazzola, I see your hand.
Thank you, Alvin. When I asked that question about getting nominations other than through the letter of intent, I meant, what should the nominations committee be doing other than collecting forms?
Okay, so other than collecting forms, and I do see that time is far spent, so we'll make this our last question. I'll share our contact information so that everybody will be able to reach us. Aside from collecting forms, you should be, again, creating some sort of process or rubric by which you will gauge your applicants. For instance, the president, the principal may share some vision of what he or she may have for the next year. Great. Well, guess what? We want to look at folks that may have skill sets in certain places that is better able to move the PTA forward. For instance, if you ever get an application from me, it will never be for treasurer. Like, if I don't balance my own checkbook, I probably won't be a good candidate for PTA treasurer. So those are things that you want to make certain that you start to weed out. As long as people are very open about their capacity and their skill sets, you normally get a good picture. You normally get a good picture of who people are. Yes, I still have AOL and it still screams at me every time I get a message. This has been one of the best Get Engaged Wednesdays that I've ever had. I've had a doorbell, AOL, you name it. But I will tell you this, Karen, we did have attendance that was somewhere in the 60s. So tell the Ledge Committee, I said, bring it. Gauntlet thrown. So hopefully that addresses that, Karen. I will say this. There are some wrong ways to do this. There is no perfect way. As long as you are doing this in earnest, that's the most important thing. As long as you are not acting outside of our governing documents, that's the right thing to do. And at any point, when you feel like you may be in over your head, you probably are, okay? But understand this, you should never stray from our mission, and you should never stray from the work of the PTA. Reach out to your county councils, reach out to Florida PTA, and we really are. Even when we are having those crazy days like we had yesterday, we are excited to be able to help you. Myself, Jen, and some others, like, we actually enjoy bylaws and nominating committees. We actually enjoy this. I am a nerd, okay? So you can always reach out. My email address, if Jen will drop it into the chat, is vp.regionscouncils, it's so weird, at floridapta.org. You can always reach out to info@floridapta.org and someone will get back to you. My personal phone number is 305-927-8351. And I am typically available on that line Monday through Thursday from sun up to sundown. Okay. So you typically run a good chance of getting me Monday through Thursday. I want to say thank you to each of you for taking time out of your evenings. Most importantly, I want to thank my rock star cast, who I've already heard there may be some Oscar buzz going. So don't be surprised. But I want to thank each and every one of you for being the right people in the right place at the right time, doing the right and righteous thing for the right and righteous reasons. And that's our children. What we do solidifies and guarantees our future, because we realize that the children are our future. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. And we look forward to you joining us for future Get Engaged Wednesdays. Thank you and have a great night.